Okay, so we're still in 4, 4. Actually, it's 4, 5 in the textbook because they changed the order of the sections. We'll just call it 4, 4. That way it's not confusing when you look at your homework. We're going to learn now how to FOIL. So before break, we learned how to use the distributive property, where we distributed or pushed through terms with parentheses. Now we're going to learn how to FOIL. Okay? And FOIL works when you have two terms by two terms. So we're going to learn the FOIL method. And the FOIL method only works when you have a 2 by 2. So a binomial times another binomial. And what that stands for is, FOIL stands for the first times the first. Then we have the O, that stands for the outside times the outside. The I stands for inside times inside. And the L stands for the last times the last. Okay, so that's FOIL. First times first, outside, inside, last times last. Most of you are probably already familiar with how to FOIL. But we're going to go ahead and review it again. So let's use the FOIL method to multiply out this binomial. So we want to go ahead and use the FOIL method here to multiply out these two binomials. And so what do? We take the first times the first. Okay, so first times the first would be 5 times 4. Okay, 5 times 4 is a 20. And x times x, that makes it an x squared. Then we do the outside times the outside, which is here. And that's 5x times a negative 2. That makes it a negative 10x. And then we do the inside and the inside. 3 times 4 makes it 12x. And then finally, we do the last times the last. And 3 times a negative 2, well, that makes it a negative 6. Nothing new. When you're done here, you'll end up with 4 terms. And always check the middles. In some cases, the middles may go together. In others, they may not. In this case, these go together, right? These are both x's here, so they can go together. So our final answer then is 20x squared. Minus 10 plus 12 makes it a 2x. And then the minus 6 comes down. So that would be your final, finished answer. Okay. How do we know we're done? We can't combine these together because they're all different. That's an x squared, that one's an x, and that was just a number, so they can't go together. Let's do some more foiling here. So this one, we're going to go ahead and FOIL again. Now, not always will the middles go together. If they don't go together, that's fine. Exponents are always going to add. The coefficients, the numbers in front, well, they multiply together. So let's go ahead now and distribute this through with the FOIL method. So 3 times 2, that makes it a 6. How many x's do we have? We have 2. 1 more makes it an x cubed. And then just a single p, so it just comes down. And we're going to do the outside times the outside. So 3 times 9. 3 times 9 makes it a 27. We've got an x squared that just comes down with it. And then a z squared as well. Nothing else can go together. That's all that we got. Be careful with the insides because of this negative here. So those can go together. Negative 7 times positive 2. That makes it a minus 14. We've got an x, y, z, and p. Doesn't matter the order of the variables, just as long as they're all there. And then finally, we've got last times last. So the last times the last, we've got a minus 7 times 9. Minus 7 times 9, that's a minus 63. And that's going to be y and z's. How many do we have? We have 1 plus 2 more makes it z cubed. Nothing goes together because everything is different, right? All the powers are different. So that's as far as you can go. Pretty straightforward on these. How do we handle having something out front? We always FOIL first. So when you work these out, you're always going to FOIL it first. So let's say we have 3x squared times 4x minus 9, 2x plus 5. Okay, so I want you to work this one out. When we look at this, this is order of operations. In order of operations, remember, we do our parentheses first. So we're going to FOIL it out first. That's the first thing that we do. And then whatever we've got left over, then we will distribute the 3x squared through. So FOIL it all out first. Just bring the 3x squared down and then distribute it at the end. So go ahead and FOIL it out first. So FOIL is first times the first. So 4 times 2 makes it an 8. X and x makes it an x squared. Outside and outside is 4 times 5 makes it a 20x. Inside, negative 9 times 2, that's at minus 18x. And last times last is a minus 45. Okay, these can go together in the middle. So now we've got an 8x squared. We've got a positive 2x and a minus 45. And then that 3x squared just comes down. So I'll slow down a bit so you can kind of keep up and see what I did. Most important part, though, is we always FOIL it first. You don't want to multiply it through first. You'll make a mistake. So FOIL it first. Then once you got it FOILed out, combine everything together as much as you can. Now we distribute that 3x squared through. So now we distribute the 3x squared through. The exponents again will add. So we've got that 3 times 8. That's going to make it a 24. X squared, and 2 more makes it x to the 4th. And then 3 times 2, that makes it a 6. We've got 2 x's, add another one, that makes it x cubed. And then we've got a minus, and we've got 45 times 3. That should be, what, 135, I believe. Yep, 135, and it's going to be a negative. So that's a minus 135, and then bring down the x squared. Is everyone right with that so far? So all you've got to do is FOIL it first. Let's do some more of these. How would we handle this one? How do we multiply this one out? This is a commonly made mistake that students will make on these. If I give you 3x minus 5 quantity squared, someone is going to say, well, I can just square the 3x, and that's going to be a 9x squared, and I can square that negative 5, that makes it 25. Doesn't work like that, because you're going to be missing the middle term. Okay, when we work these out, you've got to have your 3 terms. So we have to write this out because this is actually 2 of them multiplied together. Remember your rules for exponents. This is your base and this is your exponent. So you actually have two of them. And we're going to write them out, and then we're going to have to use the FOIL method. So write it out twice, and then FOIL. So now let's go ahead and FOIL it. 3 times 3 makes it 9. X times x is an x squared. Outside and outside. 3 times minus 5, that makes it a minus 15x. Inside and inside, watch your signs here, that's a negative. So negative 5 times 3, that makes it a minus 15x there. Negative 5 times a negative 5 for the last times the last. It makes it a positive 25. And when we combine them together, we get a 9x squared, a minus 30x, and a plus 25. See, if you just simply went and squared the first and squared the last, you would be missing this middle piece. So you need to make sure that you write it out and then FOIL after that. Let's try another one. And this one, we're going to have to rewrite it and distribute at the end. So it's a similar problem. Let's say we have a 4x to the third times 2x minus 1 quantity squared. And again, we want to multiply this out. So first thing we need to do is always FOIL first and work with those exponents. We can rewrite this as something that we're used to working with. So I can rewrite this now as a 4x cubed, and this is squared, so it's 2x minus 1 and another 2x minus 1. And we have to FOIL first. So always make sure that you FOIL this out first. That's the biggest takeaway, is FOIL it out first. So go ahead and FOIL. And so we have first times the first. So 2 times 2, that makes it a 4x squared here. Outside and outside, minus 2x. Inside and inside, minus 2x. Watch your sign on the end. Negative and negative makes it a positive 1. These can be combined together. And that is now 4x squared minus 4x plus 1. And do not forget that what is still getting drugged down? 4x cubed. And then now the very, very last step. The last step is always distributing. So go ahead now and distribute it through. And 4 times 4 is 16. X cubed, 2 more makes it x to the 5th. 4 times a negative 4, that's a minus 16. 3, add 1 more, makes an x to the 4th. And then finally we have 4x cubed. And that is going to be our final finished answer. So that's how we handle one of those. And I'll slow down a bit so you can get this all copied down. I know on these, there's not much to them, and I tend to work through them pretty quickly. So I'll slow down a little bit just to make sure that we get caught up here. Okay. Now we'll move on. We're going to add a little bit more to these. Sometimes you may have to FOIL more than once. So you may have to FOIL and then work it out again after that. So let's work with this one. These are just going to be multiply. So let's go ahead and multiply. How about 3x plus 2 quantity cubed. So let's say I want you to multiply this one out. Now first off, we're going to have to FOIL and then work with it again after that. So this was going to require 2 steps of multiplication. Just like we would if it was squared, we have to write it out twice. Or, sorry, 3 times in this case. Normally it would be twice, but this one has an exponent or a power of 3, so we've got to write it out 3 times. So this is what we've got when we write it out 3 times. Now, we're going to go ahead and FOIL. Do what now?
I was just FOIL.
Yep, we're going to go ahead and FOIL these 2 out together here. Because when we FOIL, it has to be 2 times, 2 by 2. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and take the last 2, and we're going to combine them together using the FOIL method. Then we'll see what we've got left over and do it again. So let's go ahead and FOIL here. So we got 3x times 3x, that makes it a 9x squared. And then we've got a 3x times 2, that makes it a 6x. And then we've got the inside and the inside. That's another 3 times 2, which is another 6x. And then we've got the last times the last, which is a 4. The middles, again, can go together, and a lot of times that can happen. Not always. As you saw earlier, one of them didn't go together in the middle, but most of the time they will. So that's going to make it now a 9x squared plus 12x plus 4. And then what comes down is a 3x plus 2. What we've got left over is going to introduce another concept. So what we need to do is we need to multiply this out. But we can't use the FOIL method, because the FOIL method only works when it's a 2 by 2, a binomial times another binomial. Like here, right? We could FOIL here, but we can't FOIL here because this is a trinomial. There are different ways of working this out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have you use what's called the rectangle or the box method. So we make a box, and I think this is just a little bit easier to keep track of than using the distributive method. So we're going to make a box here, a rectangle, and I usually write the larger one across the top and the smaller one down the side. We'll make a box or make a grid. So when we FOILed it first, now this was too big to FOIL, so we're going to use what I call the box or the rectangle method. So we made our rectangle here, and now we fill it in. And we fill it in by multiplying. So 9 times 3 makes it 27. X squared and another x makes it x cubed. Next we've got 3 times 12, and 3 times 12 working across is a 36. X and x makes it an x squared. And we've got 3x times 4. Well, 3 times 4 makes it 12. And the x is there. 9 times 2 on the next row. 9 times 2 is 18. X squared. 2 times 12 is 24. And bring the x down. And then 2 times 4 makes it an 8. Is everyone okay with how I've got this box filled in here?
Yeah.
Now, what we do is we start at the upper left corner and we work our way through the box. And we combine on the diagonal. Most of the time, you're going to be able to add on these diagonals. You always start in the upper left corner because that's your largest power. And so what do we have in our upper left corner? We've got a 27x cubed. And I like to cancel them off, so we'll go ahead and cross that off. So the 27x cubed is gone. Now, what do you notice on this diagonal here? As we work our way to the right and down, these can go together, can't they?
Yeah.
Because they're both x squared. And we just add 36 and 18. They add together. And that makes your 54x squared. Right? Gone and gone. And now we have, on the next diagonal, a 12 and a 24. 12 plus 24, that makes it a 36. These are both x's, so the x comes down. Gone and gone. And then what's left over all by itself? Plus 8, and that's gone. And there is your final multiplied out answer.
That's easy.
Yeah, you just have to make the box. You can do it by drawing arrows, but I think it gets confusing. I think the box is a little bit more contained. Yeah, they're not difficult. Just watch out for signs and watch out for multiplying. Okay, now that one only had 3 terms in there. Let's try one that's a little bit larger. So let's make it a little bit larger. Let's try to multiply this out. So we want to go ahead and multiply this one out. Now again, as we can see, this one is clearly way too large to FOIL. So we're going to approach it the same way that we did the last one. We're going to make a box. Now this one's going to be a 3 by 3 because they're the same size. It doesn't matter which one goes across the top. It doesn't matter which one goes down the side. This is just a way of keeping track and organizing. So we'll make a little bit bigger box here. And I'll just write the first one across the top. And the second one down the side. So we make our box or our grid here. And then we just simply fill it in. So 4 times 2. 4 times 2 is an 8. X squared and another x squared makes it x to the 4th. So there's 8x to the 4th there. Right? Multiplying. 3 times 2 makes it 6. X squared and another x makes it x cubed. 2x squared times 1 stays the same as a 2x squared. Next row, repeat the process. Negative 7 times 4. Negative 7 times 4, that's a minus 28. And an x and an x squared makes it x cubed. Negative 7 times 3, that's a minus 21. X and x makes it an x squared. Negative 7x times 1, that makes it a minus 7x. Is everyone okay with how I'm filling them in? Pretty easy. I think it's the absolute easiest way to keep track of these. You can do it by drawing arrows and multiplying, but students are more likely to make a mistake with just adding them incorrectly. So now we do our last row. 5 times 4, well, that's 20, x squared. 5 times 3 is 15x. And 5 times 1 is a 5. Now we've got it. We've got it all mapped out. We start at the upper left corner, and we just work our way down to the lower right corner. So the upper left corner, we start off with an 8x to the 4th. So that is gone. Now, look at my diagonals. Most of the time, these diagonals are going to be able to be added together. These are both cubes, so they can go together. So we've got 6 minus 28, and 6 minus 28, that makes it a minus 22, and that's going to be x cubed there. Gone, gone. And now look at this diagonal. These are all x squareds, and so they can just be added across. So we've got 20 minus 21, so that's a minus 1. Minus 1 plus 2 makes it a 1. So that's going to be an x squared there, because those all just get added together. Then we've got 15 minus 7. 15 minus 7 makes it an 8x. Gone, gone. And then what's left all by itself? 5. And there's your answer.
Okay, that's easy.
Yep, not bad at all. Let's do one more of these. And then we'll look at a question from your homework. Okay, so let's do one more. Okay, so I want you to multiply this one out. Just like we FOILed first, we're going to do the box method first. That 4x squared, it stays there until the very, very end. And the very, very last thing that we do is distribute. So we do the box of the FOIL method first, whichever one you got. And then if you got something out in front, like this 4x squared, at the very end it gets pushed through, but not until the end. So the very last thing is distributing. So let's go ahead and just ignore that 4x squared because it's going to be there. But we're going to go ahead and do our box method first. So this one's going to look more like a square. One of them goes across the top. One of them goes down the side. It doesn't matter which one goes where. So 3x squared, 5x and a 1, x squared minus 7x, and a 3 down the side. And now we just start filling in. So 3 times that 1 out in front. That makes it just a 3. X squared and another x squared makes it x to the 4th. So we've got 3x to the 4th there. The next one, we've got x squared times 5x. So that's a 5x cubed. X squared times 1 is an x squared. Is everyone okay with that so far?
Yeah.
Yep. If I make a mistake, be sure and tell me. Negative 7 times positive 3, that's a minus 21. X squared and another x makes an x cubed total. Yep, because there's 1 here and 2 more there makes it 3. Minus 7 times 5, that's a minus 35. X and another x makes it an x squared. And these should add on the diagonal. So we know we're probably doing it correct, right? Because these go together and those go together. Minus 7 times 1, that's a minus 7. And bring your x down. And next row, we've got 3 times 3, which is 9, x squared. 3 times 5 is 15x. 3 times 1 is a 3. Okay, and so we're on the right track. Almost done here. Always start at the upper left corner and work your way to the right. So we have a 3x to the 4th. Gone. What about x cubed? We've got a 5 and a minus 21. So 5 and a minus 21, that's going to be a 16. It's a minus, right? That's 5 minus, 21. Should give you that minus 16. So that's going to be a minus 16x cubed. Gone, gone. And what about on the diagonal? So what do we got? We've got a 9. We've got a minus 35. And we've got 1 more. So 9 minus 35 plus that 1. That makes it a minus 25. x squared here. We just added them all together. And then we've got 15 minus 7 and 15 minus 7. That makes it a positive 8x again. Gone and gone. And then the 3 is all by itself. And don't forget now what's out in front of all of it.
4x squared.
Yep, 4x squared. And so now my last step is going to be push that 4x squared through. And so 4 times 3 is a 12. X squared, and 4 more makes it x to the 6th. 4 times a negative 16. I believe that should be a negative 64. Yep. It's going to be a negative 64. And we've got x squared. Add 3 more makes it x to the 5th. And 4 times a negative 25. That makes it 100. X to the 4th there. And then 4 times 8. Okay, 4 times 8. That's going to be a 32. X squared. Add 1 more, makes it x cubed. And then 4 times 3 is 12. X squared. So easy enough. And that's it.
You don't go through and try to clean it out.
Well, why can't we clean these up? Why can't we clean this up
Because
anymore?
all the powers are.
Right. And
Oh.
so how do we
Oh,
know
never
when we can
mind.
stop?
Never
and
mind.
sometimes that happens because sometimes students look at this and they don't know when to stop. Okay, how do I know I can now stop? I know that I can stop because I look at this and all of these powers are different, right? So I know I'm done. No parentheses are left over. Every power is different, so nothing can be combined together. And that's a legitimate question because a lot of times, especially in Chapter 5, students don't know when to actually stop. And they keep trying to do more when they were done 2 steps before. So nothing can go together. All of our parentheses are gone, so we are done. Now, just to make sure we understand how to do one of these questions from the homework, I'm going to look at question 7. It's a very, very easy question. But this is a question that students sometimes look at and try to overanalyze. We've got 4m to the 4th, z to the 4th. And then we've got 3m cubed z squared. A lot of times, students see a question like this, and this is a very, very simple question, but we've been doing so much with foiling and the box method, you're going to try to make it more complicated than what it really is. First off, on this one, do we have any addition or subtraction? No. No addition, no subtraction, right? So we're just going to multiply straight across because there's no reason to FOIL, right? No addition, no subtraction. So we're just going to multiply. So we're going to multiply our coefficients first. 4 times 3, that's a 12. How many m's do we have total? 4. And 3 more makes it 7. And how many z's do we have? 4. And 2 more makes it z to the what? 6. But you see how students a lot of times will try to make this more complicated. This is very easy because there's no addition or subtraction, right? So we don't have to FOIL. We don't have to do anything else. All we do is multiply the numbers together and add all of our exponents. Nothing like the previous ones. And I just put that one on there just so you kind of remember how it works and try not to overcomplicate something. Okay, so that finishes up Chapter 4. I think we'll wait until next week to start Chapter 5 because I want to make sure we have all this down before we move on to factoring, because factoring is just doing the opposite. So next week we're going to go through Chapter 5, and we're going to spend a lot of time on Chapter 5. That'll probably actually be the last chapter that we cover, is Chapter 5, because it's It's intensive, lots of things to remember and work through, but also very, very important. So your homework now for next week is 4.1. You should be able to work them all out, and 4.4. And you should be able to work all of those out. Now, if you did not turn in your homework last week and you have it, I'll go ahead and pick that up. If you turned in your homework last week, I've got it graded.
Will I be able to turn it in next week?
Do I? Yeah, if you want to turn it in next week, you can. Just watch us falling too far behind. Because it's very, very easy to get so far behind